Welcome David and Samira, and we're going to be talking food security today. Firstly, can you tell us a little bit about automed and how you got into the business?
So the company founded was in 2012. The original idea was actually created in 2010. It was originally started around accurate dosing, so it was all about effectively delivering medication based on animals' weight, but doing it properly. Then we developed a basic concept back then, and then from there we ended up with some technology constraints. And what we actually did then was I actually shelved the project. So I was also working with other projects and other companies at the time. And in 2011, 2012, I actually picked the project up again because when I was in Europe, I actually found a piece of technology that actually could help me reduce the cost dramatically and also get me what I needed. And we then kicked the company off. So in around about 2012, we then met with one of the pharmaceutical companies and they actually took us on a different direction. So originally we started off focusing heavily on that accurate dosing aspect. And it was a very smart vet within this group, within this pharmaceutical company, that actually told us that we'd missed the point completely. And what he looked at was he saw that we could actually create a complete compliance and traceability system pretty much without realising it. And he then actually worked with us over a period of literally a couple of years and actually got us in line with what he saw the industry needed future-wise. So from that discussion, we then ended up in a situation where we went from accurate dosing to then be looking at full, basically, compliance and traceability of medication delivery, with a focus really around consumer. So it was all about, say, supply chain. So making sure that whatever drug you were using, the system would then know what drug it was, what animal it was, and then you could then push that data into the consumer aspect. But then what ended up happening was we ended up then splitting the system. So pharmaceutical companies then started talking to us about how we could actually effectively, identify the drug that was actually connected on the device. So we came up with a method that was effectively like a printer and printer cartridge. Now, effectively what you've got is you've got a driver unit, you've got a disposable adapter, and you've got a mobile phone. Whole system's designed to be completely mobile. So what that actually means is there's no cables, it's a full standalone mobile system. Now, effectively, obviously it's battery operated. You've got your mobile application. Now, everything's automatically paired up. So as soon as you actually connect the device, I'll just put that there like that. Okay. You go to that. Now the device is connected, and what we do now is we actually connect our adapter on. Now, this adapter I actually configured back at our workshop, so it's already been configured to an actual drug. Now, obviously, if I actually put an adapter on there that's actually not configured to a medication, what I'll actually do is they'll actually tell me that I've actually got to configure that adapter. Now, what that actually means is that once I actually configure that adapter to that drug, every time I actually clip it on and off the device, it automatically knows what drug it is. But not only what drug it is, what batch it was, expiry date, and other variables of the actual medication. Now, this is very important when it comes to pharmaceutical, because what it means is they can now effectively ensure that, when I've actually clicked on a type of drug, that I'm then dosing to that full drug parameters. So the way the actual adapter also works is, it's telling the actual system what drug I've got. The system's then looking at our own database and then seeing that data and then saying, okay, this drug's X, Y, Z, and this is the dose it needs to have, this is the weight, X, and so then it's dosing as per the pharmaceutical recommendations. So that way there's no user input. In terms of the actual farmer using it, pretty straightforward. Click on his adapter, obviously he configures his adapter. Now I can redo this one. So what we do here is we go to adapter, we select the medication, we press yes, and we configure. And as soon as it's actually configured, it's ready to go. Now, say for instance, Say for instance, we want to actually configure that to a different medication. This adapter can only be configured to one medication, that's it. So if I want to try and configure that now to a different medication, it'll actually come in with an error. It won't actually allow me to actually configure it to a different type of medication. So what that means is if I'm on a farm and I've got 10 different medications, I'll actually have 10 different adapters for each of those medications. And that way, in situations where you're in, say, in America, we use a lot of South American workers and that, where they're non-English speaking, it's very simple to use. We've actually got studies now where we've got South American people working with our system and finding it extremely easy to work with.
So it prevents user error, essentially.
Yeah. So you're completely removing the user inputs. The only user input we actually have in the system is adding inventory in the system. And there's now ways we're actually further developing our system where we're actually removing that from the solution as well. Such as like pharmaceutical supply chains are actually that supply for like medication to, say, large organisations like large piggeries and that, are then entering that directly into the automed system, and then they're automatically pulling from that when they actually inject animals. So now there's some safety aspects. Now this one here is actually a needle, used for needles. I did bring a needle with me. So it's pretty straightforward. Pretty much this is actually what you call a lure lock system. So how it is like a quick release. Now that's obviously got a needle in it. I'll actually take the needle out for safety aspects. So now, when it actually comes to injection, you'll see it comes with a needle guard, so nothing can actually happen. It's not until the actual needle guard's engaged that it'll actually inject. Now that's a safety feature. So what that prevents is someone actually squirting medication in the air, but it also prevents, say, a user actually injecting themselves as well. We also have a different type of adapter as well that's actually designed for more hazardous drugs, which has a full mechanical lockout, which means that it's literally impossible for you as a human to actually self-inject yourself. That's pretty much how that system works.
So why is this so important for food security?
So when we look at, say, certain types of medication, and when we look at consumer requirements, plus also disease control, it all comes back to making sure that, when I've medicated the animal, I've medicated the animal. But it's not just recording the dose, it's also ensuring that the medication went into the animal. So we do things in our actual back end of our system that actually monitor how a drug is actually being delivered to an animal. So when you think about it, if you're treating a disease like swine fever in Asian countries, or even in certain parts of other parts of the world, the issue is that if you miss one animal, you have the potential for the disease to outbreak again. So you've got to get 100% effective medication right across. Now, that also creates issues too, because what you've got to do then is, if you're using, say, a manual system, which is like the one I've got here, this is how you currently do a lot of medication in the market now. So it's basically a manual system, and you're injecting a lot of animals, but there's no way of actually physically recording the data. One of the problems though, one of the advantages actually of the automated system is the ability to actually effectively inject every single animal, record that, and then you can actually sit there and say, okay, we had 300 animals, and from 300 animals we're going to give 291 direct injections. That means we actually missed 9 animals. Now, if they're actually using RFID tags on each one of their animals, what that means is you effectively could go back through all those animals again, scan each one of those animals, and then identify which ones haven't been injected, and then go back and do it again. But when you actually get right down into it, consumers want to see more transparency within their food. They want to understand exactly what's going on within their food, so knowing exactly what's being injected into what the animal's being given. The other food security aspect is ensuring that certain drugs that have been delivered to animals that have got withholding periods, so they've got residuals aspect, they're making sure that the withholding period's been reached before the animal's basically processed as well. And the big one is really around disease control. And that, when you get to food security, that is a major aspect, is understanding exactly what's happening to the animal, but ensuring you're looking at proper disease management to ensure healthy animals.
What are the implications in terms of disease outbreaks and killing off whole industries? And why is this such an important tool to prevent that? So
you look at something like PRRS disease in America. PRRS disease is actually an airborne virus. Piggeries, major pork producers actually invest a lot of money in, say, biosecurity. So in Australia, we don't have the amount of diseases we have in America. So when you look at things like biosecurity aspects, they're fully sealed sheds. You've got to actually shower on the way in, change into their clothes, and then do what you've got to do, and then you've got to shower on the way out. Even to the point of driving up to the facilities, you've actually got to have full biosecurity cars. The cars can't be seen to be going onto another property within, say, 2 weeks, and all these things. Even things like, for me as an international going to America, I actually can't go to a piggery for at least 7 days. So when it comes to things like, controlling disease, obviously there's a massive cost in, setting up facilities compared to other countries. But the other aspect too is, these sort of diseases will wipe out entire facilities. So avian flu is a great example as well. Avian bird flu can wipe out poultry farms literally overnight. even to the point that poultry farms that aren't affected by it can be even slaughtered because of the fact they're seen as an issue. They're seen as a what you'd call they're effectively a contagion in the sense that they could actually catch it and then spread it further. And that's certain biosecurity regulations on a government level that they've actually been implemented. Now, when you look at that aspect, that dramatically affects industry. And it's not just industry, it also affects the consumers. Because what happens then is we as consumers start to wonder why, chickens have suddenly got a lot more expensive, or pork's got a lot more expensive, or even things like, in the UK, mad cow's disease, no one eats beef. Unless it's actually imported from Australia and it says it's Australia or some other country they know hasn't got mad cow disease. Now that's affected that country for now nearly 10 years. So when you look at these sort of exotic diseases and these diseases that can literally wipe out entire facilities, it just doesn't affect, that one farm. It actually affects an entire industry. And there's a lot of arguments around the fact of overuse of antibiotics and that sort of aspect. There is cases of overuse of antibiotics. So the Canadian government, for instance, there's been a lot of work in Canada about certain types of antibiotics being used in chicken feed that they've now determined are only about 10% effective. Over a 14-year period, the industry's actually recognised that. But it hasn't been the consumers that have actually, caused the removal of this antibiotic. It's actually been the industry. The industry's recognised the fact that we don't need this type of antibiotic, and then what we should be doing is we should just remove it and look at alternative methods. So, and that's a good case study too, because what that actually shows consumers is the industry just doesn't pump this medication in animals, because I must admit, it's bloody expensive. It's not a cheap task. And the industry's constantly monitoring, how they use medication within livestock to ensure that they're not overusing, but they're also doing the right thing to protect their industry as well.
So it looks like there's a major demand for something like automed. What are the plans for growth?
So currently, obviously we're growing quite well in Australia across the pork and beef industry, and the same in America. We are starting to merge now into the dairy industry, both in Australia and America. Canada and South America are now showing good interest. So predominantly globally, the three key industries that are really growing for us at the moment is dairy, beef and pork industry. We are getting a lot of talk now around the equine industry and also the poultry industry. And the growth aspects for us is obviously China. There's a major opportunity with China for us at the moment, and it's looking at the strategy of how we get into China. And the last one would be Europe. There's a big need for Europe because of their compliance requirements. So Europe has probably some of the most strictest compliance requirements of any country in the world, especially Germany. And, to have a system that ticks all the boxes for the European market is a big win as well. But the other thing too is our strategic partnerships. We've got a number of strategic partnerships going on at the moment, which will see automed become a standard platform across certain industries. And that's not just within one country, that's globally as well.
So you guys came to Canberra, a couple of years ago now?
2014.
2014,
Yeah.
So that's not long. How has actually being a Canberra-based business helped automed grow, or maybe not grow?
A lot.
It's interesting. When I was in Newcastle, we struggled to get support for what we did. And the reason being is Newcastle's an industrial town. It's very much mining, rail and defence. And they, the industry groups and that just didn't really get it. And they struggled to understand the concept. What amazed me was when we actually come to Canberra and met with actually yourself first, what was really interesting was Canberra sort of absorbed us really quickly and just looked at what we did and sort of got all this support. And what was very overwhelming for us because, when I met with Brent Chick, he just turned around the spot and said, no, perfect product, we've got to look at how we work with you. And I sort of went back to Newcastle because we were only just starting to do those introductions into Canberra before we officially moved here. And when I actually went back to Newcastle, I said to Samuel, we've got more support in one day than, we've got from Newcastle region. And I said, we really need to be pushing this idea. So we did. We made a decision on the spot and moved it and never looked back. It has been an absolute rollercoaster ride ever since. Obviously the Lighthouse, there's a lot of introductions done to Lighthouse and got us in front of a lot of people. Canberra Chamber of Commerce was the other one that really helped us connect with the people that we needed to connect to, you know, we have further ACT government grants, but, you know, obviously Brent, Chick and Glenn as well from, you know, the ICON grant, they helped us dramatically. So obviously we got the ICON grant, but they went beyond that as well. They got us in touch with, say, Robert Holgate, you know, and then we got in touch with Simon also yesterday from, you know, the federal government side as well. And then you get into other industry groups like Club at IT, Rob Miller, Anthony. They've been phenomenal supporters of what we've been doing and really pushing us and getting us in contact with not just people in Canberra but also people outside of Canberra in the IT community that they see we could actually work with as well.
Because you've also just recently won some awards, haven't you?
Yeah, won about 6 now. We've got 6 now.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, so we won the 2 regional awards so the I Awards. So we won the 2 regional I Awards. So that was the for Mobility Innovation of the Year and Prime Industry Award. Then when we went to the Nationals, we actually won the Mobility and the Prime Industry again. Plus we also won the Victorian Government Inspiration of the Year Award. And 3 weeks ago, we also won the Innovation Award for the Australian Beef Feedlot Association.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So tell me, what are the plans for 2017?
Well, just on the awards side, before that, we're actually got the Picture Awards now coming up in 3 weeks, which is the Asia Pacific International Awards, which is the next level from the I Awards. We're in 2 categories there as well. So that, if we do that, it'll be a good start to 2017 because that's middle of December. But we're actually now off to also America from December right through to March. So Automed USA for us is starting to gain a lot of pace very quickly. And so we're actually going over there to focus for 3 months heavily on the USA market. We also have a potential global deal going at the moment that if we can actually agree to and pull off, will actually push us right through those other countries we spoke about. So there's a lot of growth. I suppose the R&D side is probably limited back to about 10%. It will increase around mid next year again, but the big focus now is obviously marketing, sales and our production. So there's a lot of work and focus going on in the manufacturing aspect. And on the sales and agreement side, there's a lot of work going on in our strategic development moving forward.
Congratulations and all the best for 2017.
Thank you.
Thank you.